Thoughts.
Welcome back to Political Connections, everyone. I'm Ibeth Brusual. Continuing now with the state attorney candidate, Jeff Ashton, here in the studios one-on-one. Okay, so where we just finished our discussion with the first half of the show, I want to continue on that same vein. Do you think the state attorney should either be actively involved in the prosecutions or even prosecute a case as a, demonstration of leadership, get their hands dirty?
Absolutely. I think you have to lead first by example. You have to lead by example to show the people that you actually can do this. The present state attorney hasn't tried a case in 16 years, only tried one in the whole time he's been there.
So why do you think he hasn't done that?
I think that he doesn't feel it's important. I think that he sees the trial of cases as the nitty-gritty. I think he once referred to it that way, as not important enough for his time. And I just vehemently disagree with him. I think what goes on in that courtroom is the most important thing. Everything else is only important to the extent that it makes that work better. And that's one of the biggest things that I look forward to doing, is getting in there, refocusing us on the trial of those cases and the legal work product.
Do you think it would be micromanaging as opposed to macro?
I think what I intend to do is lead by example, first of all. I intend to lead by engagement. I want to actually get in and talk to these young lawyers. I mean, Lawson's only real contact with the young lawyers is walking around with a coffee cup every 3 or 4 months and saying, everything okay? Everything okay? That's not how you talk to the lawyers and find out what's going on, what's hard for you, what are we succeeding at, what are we failing at? We never ask those questions. Those are the questions I'm going to ask, and we're going to make it better.
Let me ask you a question I think a lot of people watching right now probably have wanted to ask you, so we'll ask for the viewers. We've asked the other candidates about this regarding the Casey Anthony trial. Looking back, or even at the onset of the trial, Jeff, if you were the state attorney, okay, at the time, so we have to put our mindset at the time, would you have done anything differently, charged differently? Because that was one of the big questions. And one of the things that I brought up with Lawson Lamar when I did the one-on-one here on Political Connections was, if he had not gone for the charge that actually went, was presented, then he probably would have been criticized.
Well, I mean, as far as the charge goes of first-degree murder, I believe that is what she did. I believe that, she deliberately murdered her child. So I think that the charge was appropriate. As far as the death penalty go, I've discussed that in the book. I believe that Lawson lawfully sought the death penalty. I believe that under a view of the evidence, that aggravating circumstances were there. So I do not criticize him on a legal basis for making that decision. From a practical standpoint, I did tell him at the time we discussed it that the likelihood of her getting it was extremely thin, and ultimately it was his decision whether to go forward or not. I know that more recently he's tried to make it sound like a group decision, which,
he said that on the show, that they're in a room, you're one of 3 people in the room with them.
When I'm state attorney, the buck stops with me, okay? I'm not going to run away from responsibility for decisions that I make. The elected state attorney has got to make those kind of decisions. And ultimately, there can be only one voice. It's not a democracy.
Do you think there should be term limits?
For state attorneys, I'm not sure that that's really necessary, because I think we have a vibrant enough electorate to be able to get involved in that on a local level. So I've never really been a fan of term limits for state attorney positions. Hasn't really been debated to any great extent. I do think, though, that there's a point when you've been in office for so long that you stop innovating. You stop looking for new ways to do it better. And I think that's where the state attorney's office is right now.
Very interesting. Hey, let's continue talking about the political race itself.
Sure.
Okay, York Yeager, tongue twister for me sometimes, but I got through it, announced he was ending his campaign. Okay, so that now gets so interesting, because we were thinking, okay, you and Lamar and Ryan Williams will run together, and then we'll look forward to November. But no, whoever wins August 14th is going to be the new state attorney. So when York Yeager announced he's stepping down, the 3 of you remain for the Democratic ticket. Do you think there's dirty politics behind that?
I think there was manipulation, yeah. I mean, Mr. Yeager was a big supporter of Lawson's, gave him, a good deal of money, either through himself or through family members or businesses he's involved in. Was a spokesman for Lawson. And then when I got in the race, Yeager jumps in specifically to run against me, and exactly
Interesting,
How
yeah.
politically he thought he was going to do that, I don't know. But the couple of forums we were at, it was clear that Mr. Yeager was Lawson's attack dog, and I just think what happened was ultimately it wasn't working. People were not being fooled by Yeager saying the nasty things about me, and they still knew it was coming from Lawson.
And that changes the dynamics of the race, because
Sure.
you thought, we can plan for long term, but no, it's between now and August 14th, so you have to rearrange everything.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about back to the Casey case,
Sure.
the movie? How's it been going? I know it's going to be shut up in Canada. How involved will you be hands-on with the production?
I am not involved at all in the production. It's going on right now, actually,
Okay.
up in Winnipeg.
So you won't be on set?
Well, I may be on set briefly. That's still sort of being figured out. But as far as production goes, they didn't consult me on casting. The screenwriter would call me with questions. I would answer them. I was just basically a source of information for them. But as far as production goes, I'm going to be as surprised by it as everybody else.
Okay, thank you so much for coming into
My
the
pleasure,
studios.
Beth.
Now it's time for this week's Political Connections viewer poll. We want to know the following. If the election were being held today, who would you vote for in the state attorney race for the 9th Circuit? Go to our website, cfnews13.com/politics. Cast your vote. We'll have the results Monday morning. Hope you're there watching during your morning news on News 13. Political Connections. We'll be right back.